can try and win championships, and that's what it's all about. When you look from the outside and you watch this team, I know we're going to have a real good, solid hockey team this year.
Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Eric Wilson. I hope everyone had a happy 4th of July weekend. And today, we're back talking about the Rangers preparing for free agency, which begins 1 week from today, noon, Wednesday, July 13th. We're super excited, and we're ready to cover all the trade and free agency rumors and signings and all the news that comes your way, discussing the New York Rangers right here on Fireside Rangers. But today, we're going to be talking about Nazem Kadri. Just won the Stanley Cup with the Colorado Avalanche, and he is a player that reportedly the New York Rangers have some interest in. You know, we've talked about it a few times on this channel. The Rangers are, of course, looking to get a second-line center, want to get a premier player, premier point scorer, and Kadri could potentially be that guy. According to, let's see, a report here. Here's the quote. Quote, I think I should say I know that one team that has Kadri high up on their list is the New York Rangers. Ryan Strome, take that money out and pay Nazem Kadri. That makes Eric smile, makes him happy because he wants to see Ryan Strome anywhere but New York. He doesn't want to see him in a blue shirt anymore, and he would love to see that money that the Rangers might be allocating towards Ryan Strome get placed elsewhere. And you know what? I agree. But anyways, Eric, what are your thoughts on this report, and how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good. This report's actually pretty interesting because if you really think about it, Kadri is realistically the best second line center option out there for us right now to replace Ryan Strome. But like you said in that quote, you definitely have to take Ryan Strome's contract and just throw it in the garbage where it belongs. But it would also take a lot more than that because, Kadri's coming off a career year with the Colorado Avalanche. He just won a Stanley Cup, and his next contract is going to be a big one. This season, he only played in 71 games, but he put up 28 goals, 59 assists for 87 points, better than he's ever done in his career, over a point per game player. And he maybe would have hit 100 points had he played the full season without injury. So it's definitely going to take a lot of work if we wanted to make this happen. I don't know how realistic this signing is, but if it was possible, it's something that I would be very interested in.
Absolutely. It's definitely something to be interested in. Of course, you take a look at his statistics. In the 2022 season, 71 games played, 28 goals, 59 assists for a total of 87 points. Just a killer stat line there. And throughout his career, he's always been a solid player. 739 games played, 219 goals, 293 assists for a total of 512 points. He did have 15 points in 16 playoff games this year, of course, like I mentioned, winning the Stanley Cup Finals. He's 31 years old, and he's coming off of a 6-year, $27 million contract worth $4.5 million per year. But here's the catch. That $4.5 million per year that he was making, that's ready to balloon. Reportedly, he is looking for a contract north of $8 million on average annually, average annual value north of $8 million. And is that realistically something that the New York Rangers could afford? Well, that would be pretty tough. You take a look at, some of the players that the Rangers might have to be re-signing this offseason, maybe even looking ahead to next offseason, really just taking a look at the Rangers' total salary cap space, pulling it up now on Cap Friendly. They have a projected cap space of $10.2 million right now. So $10 million right now, really tough to see the Rangers spending $8 million average annual value on Kadri when they only have $10 million to spend, leaves them with $2 million left over before making some cuts that they are going to have to make. There are some contracts that they can dump. Patrick Nemeth, we discussed that in a recent episode, I think 2 weeks ago. So go back on the channel, check that out. But Eric, what are your initial thoughts on Kadri's potential contract demands, and what do you think the Rangers could maybe do to afford signing Kadri in free agency?
Yeah, I mean, his contract demands are scary. We're already paying Artemi Panarin $11 million per year. Zibanejad's on an $8 million contract. Kreider's making $7 million. And, we're spending all this money on our forwards. And that's kind of what the Toronto Maple Leafs look like right now. They have 3 or 4 forwards making over $10 million, which leaves them very little money to work with their defense and their goaltending, which is why they have never gone too far in the playoffs. And, signing Kadri to a contract north of $8 million kind of puts us in that same position where we're going to have all these young defensemen looking for contracts in the next coming years, and we're not going to have the money to do it because all of our money is being funneled into this offense who won't be enough to produce. And the other scary thing about it is, like you mentioned, he is 31 years old, and he's looking for a long-term extension, 6 to 8 years. So yes, he had a career year this year, but what happens if we re-sign him to like an $8.5 million contract and then he doesn't reproduce? So then for the next 7 years, he's stuck on our team, not putting up points worth that contract. So it's definitely risky. It's really scary. That's why I'm not the biggest fan of potentially signing him, but it could work out. And we would have to give up a lot. That would mean Strom and Cobb out the door. Probably wouldn't be able to sign Vetrano, and honestly, Philip Hedel might have to go too. The Rangers have already expressed that they don't want to move Hedel, but they would be open to doing so if it meant that they can get a more established second line center. But then, as I mentioned last episode, getting rid of our third line center for a better second line center would just create another gap on the third line. And the third and fourth line is where you really need to be careful of who you put on there because you need that depth in order to be good in this league. So yeah, very scary. We'd have to give up a lot, and I'm just not sure it's worth the risk.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that made the Rangers so great this season is they did have a lot of depth and a lot of unexpected depth. The underdog Rangers had a lot of young guys step up, third and fourth line players really stepping up and making an impact. And that depth is something that I think the Rangers are going to want to keep intact. Now, it's going to be tough because, of course, we all want the Rangers to upgrade at the second line center position, but limited cap space, and we don't want to see too many of these familiar faces depart in free agency. In fact, you can even look ahead to next year. It's really difficult to envision a world where the Rangers are paying $8 million to Kadri for this year, next year, 5 years down the line, because take a look at some of the contracts that they need to extend next summer. You got Lafreniere, you got Keandre Miller, you got Philip Hedel, unless he's traded. Next summer, those guys are due for contracts. One of the great things about the Rangers right now is if they do want to go cup or bust, swing for the fences this season, they do have a lot of players, young players on entry-level contracts, right? And they're making very low wages, but give it another year and they don't have that luxury anymore. Some guys are due for some big paydays, and keep in mind the Rangers don't even have a first round pick in this year's draft, so you might be looking ahead to next year, but it's a complicated situation. The Rangers, they're tight on cap space, and that's going to make signing a guy of Nazem Kadri's level and talents really, really difficult. But again, there's another player as well who could be a roadblock, Capo Caco. If the Rangers want to re-sign Capo Caco to a bridge deal in the neighborhood of about $2 million per season, I don't really know if you can afford to do that and sign Kadri. So, Eric, do you have any ideas on maybe some players that the Rangers could get rid of in order to free some space and maybe make this signing a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, in order for this to even become realistic, like I said, Sturm and Kopp, Vetrano, you got to let them go. You'd probably have to trade either Kako or Lafreniere, which is not anything that I would want to do. Ryan Reeves would probably have to go. Patrick Nemeth would definitely have to go. We might have to even let go of some of our younger defensemen like Nils Lundqvist. Georgiev definitely at the door. We're talking about a lot of players on this roster, which is just more reason to why I wouldn't say that this signing would be worth it whatsoever. I think there's better, cheaper players out there who could fit the second line and would just work out perfect. Like, we discussed JT Miller. I still think he might be our best option. And, just Nazem Kadri, he's good, but he's expensive. And I'm just not sure he's worth the price.
Is there any scenario where you could see it being worth the price, though?
If somehow, some way, Kadri wants to sign a shorter length contract with maybe only like 3 to 4 years, which would make his contract worth less money. If he could somehow sign like a 4 year, like $5 or $6 million contract, that would be a little more worth it because we wouldn't have to worry about him getting too old and we wouldn't have to worry about getting rid of too many players. But like I said, that's in a perfect world. I really don't think that Kadri would ever do that to play for us. He's coming off a Stanley Cup winning year. He's career year in stats, and he's definitely going to go for that bag. So realistically, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I do think a team is going to give him that bag. Again, you mentioned it, career year coming off of a championship season for him. I think he's going to get paid this offseason, and I don't think that the Rangers have the money to afford Nazem Kadri in free agency. But, we'll see, right? The Rangers have some moves that they can make. They can free up some cap space, but in my opinion, I don't think it's worth it to sacrifice all of these players, not only this offseason, but you're making sacrifices in the 2023 offseason as well, just to sign Nazem Kadri. And I do think that the reported desire for him to be signed to a very long-term contract is also a little bit frightening. I don't want to tie up too much money to Nazem Kadri for, around 7 years. I mean, $8 million, 7 years for a player who's already 31 years old. The math just does not work for me. So I don't think that this is a realistic possibility for the Rangers. I know that the Rangers have had reported interest in Nazem Kadri in the past, but I don't think that they have the money to spend on him this offseason. However, I think there are some other really solid options out there in free agency that I look forward to diving into leading up to free agency over the next week. And of course, whenever the Rangers make that sign and get that second line center, we'll have the update for you right here on Fireside Rangers. Let us know what you think down in the comment section below. Nazem Kadri, worth the money, not worth the money? Should the Rangers pursue him in free agency, or should they just save their money, invest it elsewhere? Let us know down below. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video. Subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss a video, and we'll catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Rangers.
Let's go Rangers.
He shoots. He scores. Rangers. Rangers. Rangers.